Yes, Ms. Presley from Massachusetts.
Thank you. This bill titled the Dismantling DEI Act is an utter disgrace. Having sat and read the text in preparation for today's markup, I have yet another example to tell my constituents about the unserious work of the Republican Party. Now, I'll work with anyone serious about progress who wants to center the people who call this country home. This isn't it. The Committee on Oversight has the broadest jurisdiction in the entire House of Representatives to investigate any topic it chooses, but we are debating legislation that denies the sky is blue, water is wet, and racism is real. The major provision of the bill says to ban anything that acknowledges racism. And a few pages later in the exact same bill, there are multiple provisions discussing the presence of racism. This Republican approach is as predictable as it is nonsensical. On one hand, they're saying that racism does not exist. On the other hand, they are saying there is rampant reverse racism. Well, how do you reverse something that never existed in the first place? Riddle me that. While this Republican policy may have a new name, it's the same old tired game. Look, y'all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. Do you all know your history? Do you know American history? The original Constitution counted enslaved individuals as 3/5 of a person. During World War II, the federal government forcibly relocated and incarcerated 110,000 Japanese Americans. The FHA practiced redlining in the 1930s and 60s to deny mortgages to Black Americans, which is why we have a racial wealth gap today. I could go on. The GI Bill, which is supposed to be race neutral, denied access to Black Americans, denying them equal access to education and housing benefits, which is why we do not have generational wealth. Don't talk to me about merit when those Black servicemen fought for our freedoms. And I'd also just like to take a personal note of privilege to say, please keep Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s name out of your mouths. Yes. Your perversion of his words and his mission when his children have asked you to stop invoking his name and perverting his work when he was a proud and unapologetic Black man fighting for equality for Black Americans and all marginalized people.
You can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country. You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here. We're not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we are going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed.
Let it be known. Good morning. They got a bill. It's a precursor of what's ahead. We were all warned. We were duly warned. And that's why folks they are pretty much don't know what to do with themselves. And that bill reflects what Donald Trump has said. And folks, oh, what are you talking about? I saw a guy on this, I don't know if he's watching today, who is an avowed Trump supporter, somebody I know very well, at least I used to know, grew up with. Not an African American. I saw him type in that on the discussion about Trump and white supremacy, that he didn't like it. He shaking his head. That's just too bad. It's just too bad. It is folks like that who are delusional. As Dr. Nicole says, the delusion is real. Um, you know, yesterday I was talking about Trump as being a celebrity, which is what he is. But that's the Trump. That apprentice Trump is what some of the folks who support him are holding on to. Because most of the folks who have supported him have no clue about his policies. Some of them tell you they don't even know about his convictions, the charges, et cetera, et cetera. It is a complete cult. And the Republicans, you had a Republican senator or congressman, whichever way he was, say if Trump, and said it to cameras, if Trump says jump, we just need to say how high. He's our leader. And he said that he was going to dismantle, and we're going to get into that today because there's a story that we're going to talk about this morning. He's going to dismantle the DOJ, the Civil Rights Division, and he's going to order them to focus more on hate crimes against white men, which never happens. Never happens. I challenge anybody to show me where a hate crime against a white man has ever happened. Never happens. Now you have this bill that a federal bill that wants to totally put the final nail in the DEI, the real DEI coffin, that wants to prohibit the use of terms like slavery, erase that from the history. See, I couldn't be, for a lot of reasons, Jasmine Crockett and Monique Presley and Hakeem Jeffries, because I don't have the restraint. I mean, I could probably come up with the words that they come up with, which is, they, especially Jasmine, is just extremely talented verbally and otherwise. And AOC. But at some point, the words, after all that time sitting in that seat, the words would end and uh, some other actions would have been taken, because it is such, it's like a constant spitting in your face, which is the ultimate disrespect. It's the ultimate show that you mean nothing. And this is why folks get so bent out of shape when it comes to Democrats and how weak they have shown themselves to be. And this is why folks was infuriated with the Biden meeting with Trump at the White House last week. Biden, again, his questionable political history when it comes to Black folks has reared itself again. Makes you wonder. He served under the only Black president. And believe me, there will never be a Black president in this country again. Certainly not a woman. If they didn't put white girl Hillary in, they was not going to put, no matter how talented Kamala Harris is. It's never going to, this country was never going to let that happen. But Biden serves under the only Black president. Was he a plant? Was he put there? That's what you have to ask. Was he put there for a reason? To obstruct Obama, to do intel? Then he sings the song that Black folks wanted to hear in 2020. He comes with a black Supreme Court justice. He comes with a black woman vice president who immediately, as soon as they take office, she's sidelined. Soon as they take off. And then you hear about the bickering and the infighting between Kamala's people and Biden's people. And you heard it so much that you know that it was true. And then he sits there like weekends at Bernie's for 3 years, really for the last year and a half or so, stubbornly refuses to abide by what he said in 2020 that he would be a one-termer and gone. Instead, reluctantly hands over the reins to Vice President Harris when realizing, and there was not a person who didn't say it at that time. You can roll all the tapes. It's about 100 days. How do you win an election, particularly a presidential election, with 100 days left? And I see Charles Martin saying that Biden's a criminal, and he may very well be a criminal, but golly, uh, isn't Donald Trump a convicted criminal 34 times? Isn't he accused on 86 different felony counts? Wasn't he an adjudicated sex offender? Didn't a judge find that he committed massive business fraud in the state of New York? Didn't he say he would grab women by their private parts? Didn't he have a extramarital affair with a porn star while his wife was pregnant? Didn't he appoint as his DOJ somebody who has been accused of sexually assaulting young girls? And now we see the proof coming out on that. Linda McMahon, his latest choice, the WWE person or F or whatever you want to call it, was found responsible for allowing an underage person to be sexually assaulted. This is who you have head of your schools. So yes, but I'd like to see, I don't mind seeing you post Biden as a criminal. And then the brainwash continues because he goes corrupted DOJ. How is it corrupt when that same DOJ convicted Joe Biden's child? That same DOJ has Merrick Garland, a Trump crony, head of it. And that was the other thing Biden did. And you cannot tell me that old man did not sabotage the vice president. And Monique says once Trump takes the reins, all of those supporters will wish they can take their vote, take back their vote. Yes, Trump was sued several times for racial discrimination in housing, long before the so-called corrupt Biden DOJ. It's incredible to me. Yeah, you can't convince brainwash people, but it's incredible to me that someone who spent most of their lives supposedly as close as family to the black community and black folks would go all out and not acknowledge the dangers and the hazards that the coming administration poses to black folks, which really is a testament to that person. It tells you a lot about that person, what they really are about, what they always probably have been about. That's a scary thing. That person who claims to be family, claims to be um, have your best interests in mind, will go all out for somebody that the world knows wants to annihilate. And you see the policies. You just saw one of his policies that the House of Representatives is doing, getting rid of anything that says Black history or racism, slavery, defame the name of Dr. King. And you proudly, among your Black friends, you proudly stand with this guy. You go all in for him. Have we forgotten? Charlie says that he was already president. Things were good. Good for whom? Good for whom? This guy told people to drink bleach. And then you say the disillusional stuff. And this is the last time I'm going to repeat something this guy says. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Republican. He could have been a Republican. He could have been a Tea Party member. He was not for what Donald Trump is doing. Not for it at all. Not for it in the least bit. The guy marched in the streets and uh, real, against stuff like what we are seeing. You got to be kidding me. I mean, the trueness of people, and it marks themselves. You know who not to invite to the family dinner. Who don't need to be concerned about when it comes to the cookout. And we got so much other stuff going on that we're going to talk about now. Orange G says King voted for JFK. There you have it. More than 5 years after agreeing to federal oversight to address systemic brutality and civil rights violations, the Chicago Police Department has little to show for its efforts. According to a new report, despite over 100 court hearings, hundreds of meetings, and 667 million in taxpayer funding since 2020, reform has barely inched forward. The failures are glaring. There's been no plan for officers to work with residents on public safety, no study to determine if officer assignments could reduce crime, no system to flag repeat misconduct offenders for counseling or discipline. So far, the Chicago Police Department has fully implemented only 9% of the consent decree's mandates. And excessive force complaints, they have dropped a little bit, but overall misconduct reports have gone through the roof. And so this review done by ProPublica and WTTW News has exposed the fact that there's been no urgency and no accountability. 6 police superintendents, 3 mayors, and a city council that repeatedly fails to oversee Chicago police's progress have allowed delays and unspent funds to pile up. Federal monitors and judges have avoided enforcing sanctions for whatever reason. And Chicago, we know, has a long history of police misconduct and very costly settlements. Their settlements, when it comes to police misconduct, exceed over $80 million a year. There's no public trust in that department. So, but here's the thing again. For the members of the cult, that's only going to get worse, and it's coming to a community near you. And just to correct the misinformation, Austin, who certainly knows, says that King's father was a Republican and he switched to JFK in 1960. King Jr., MLK Jr., was a Democrat. He says no alternative facts here. And Mike V says we received voter suppression and they got voters remorse. Ah, gosh. This guy, Trump told people in 2020 to drink bleach. Sent kits, tests, COVID tests to Putin when Americans were dying left and right. And now you got crazy RFK Jr. in there saying that it was the government, the US government, who unleashed COVID on the US. Well, guess who was running the government at the time? So are you talking about Trump? Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Private schools funded during desegregation to serve white students, commonly known as segregation academies, are now benefiting uh, from tens of millions in taxpayer dollars through expanded voucher programs, according to a new analysis. In North Carolina, 39 such schools continue to operate with 20 reporting student populations at least 85% white in the 2021-2022 school year, despite being in racially diverse areas. These schools, all established in the 60s and 70s, received more than 20 million in voucher funds over the past 3 years. None reflect the racial demographics of their communities. There's Northeast Academy in Northampton County, where the population is about 40% white. The school was 99% white, and it receives state voucher funds every year since North Carolina began its private school voucher program 10 years ago. Last year, the school received $438,500, nearly half its total tuition revenue, with an increase expected this year. Then there's Lawrence Academy, which is located in a county that's 60% Black, but has never reported Black enrollment higher than 3%. And they received over $500,000 in vouchers last year, and that covered 86 students. Then there's Pungo Christian Academy, and they reside in a county that's 65% white, and the school itself was 98% white. And since 2015, it has received state voucher funds every single year, and the funds have increased each year. These schools continue to entrench racial segregation, reinforcing separation in their surrounding communities. We want to talk about, uh, we want to say something good about this guy that's coming into office. Well, I mean, yes, Austin. I'm looking at Austin's text, and you can go ahead and post that because the that word I can't say on the air, the C word about this guy, but you certainly are free to post it. Um, Austin, by the way, had let everyone know that he has reached another milestone in life this year. He's at the age of retirement now. Dr. Nicole says almost 1 million Americans died during the peak of COVID because of Trump, way more than any other first world country, and that was not good. And yes, Trump has said, Cheryl Brown, he wants to give reparations to whites. And that's why when folks want to write in their idiocy, their Kool-Aid drinking ways, and it's ridiculous. You can write in all you want. Write it in all you want. Fact is, it shows that you pretend to have black friends. Maybe it shows you pretend to be black too, or have pretended to be black. And here's something else. As the incoming Trump administration plans to dismantle the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, um, the future of civil rights enforcement and protections for marginalized communities are going away under Donald Trump. This week, though, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, in collaboration with the University of the District of Columbia Law School, commemorated the 15th anniversary of the Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act. And you think about that. The 15th anniversary of the Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act is going away because of a supremacist in office and his supremacist cronies. The event, attended by hundreds in person and online, tackled the law's importance and the growing need to counter hate-fueled violence. It was passed in 2009 under the Obama administration, and it enables federal prosecution of hate crimes motivated by race, religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. It honors the memories of James Byrd Jr., who was a Black man lynched by white supremacists in Texas, and Matthew Shepard, a gay college student who was tortured and murdered in Wyoming. And while that event, headed by Kristen Clark, celebrated progress, it also highlighted the alarming rise in hate crimes and the potential reversal of gains under Trump. Kristen Clark and Associate Attorney General Benjamin Miser spoke at the event. Benjamin Miser said 15 years ago, the Hate Crimes Prevention Act gave the Justice Department critical tools to counter hate. And now we see neo-Nazis, Trump supporters, marching through Columbus, Ohio, as we did with Charlottesville, where they are good people, he said. Proud Boys, stand by and stand down and stand by. Mike V says, interesting that the Tangerine Tyrant wants reparations for white folks, but wants to dismantle a civil rights division that will work on that very issue. Yeah, nonprofits as well. Cheryl's right. But this commemoration of the Shepard Act, it showed too that since 2021, since the Biden administration took over, the Justice Department has charged over 150 individuals in more than 135 bias-related cases, and they secured over 125 convictions. And they've spun off into initiatives like United Against Hate, a program that have reached over 18,500 participants through 550 events, which encourages hate crime reporting. And the DOJ has also distributed more than $100 million in anti-hate grants to law enforcement, civil rights groups, and community organizations to support investigations, prosecutions, and victim services. There have been improvements to the National Incident-Based Reporting System, among other things. And again, all of this goes away. In fact, just last night, Trump's folks said that on day one, January 20th, he's going to do an unprecedented, their words, an unprecedented amount of executive actions. So on day one, the wrath will be felt. And now, see, this is a problem. So RNG says, I am waiting for a white guy to sue or file hate crime charges. The bar for those lawsuits and crimes is high. So, as we mentioned yesterday, the Senate has confirmed a judge, another federal judge under Biden, and immediately Donald Trump has issued an edict that under no circumstances should they allow any more confirmations until he takes office. And they're going to lower the bar in courts, RNG. That bar is not going to be so high at all. It's not going to be high in the least bit. They are controlling. This is why this has been set up for a dictatorship. Biden is twiddling his thumbs, and they have allowed the courts, the federal courts, to be controlled by MAGA. Now you have the House of Representatives controlled by MAGA, Senate controlled by MAGA, White House, of course, controlled by MAGA, all of the cabinets controlled by MAGA, and the Supreme Court controlled by MAGA. So everything is on the table that this guy wanted. Because if by chance he runs into a liberal judge in the federal courts, he'll just simply appeal to the folks that he has in his back pocket at the U.S. Supreme Court. And Trump Jr. said they're taking names. Anybody who goes against them will essentially be punished. And then here you have Trump confirming that his intent to declare a national emergency and involve the U.S. military in his plans for mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. So I hope you, Mr. Trump supporter, have your papers in order. On his social media platform, Trump endorsed a post by Tom Fitton, who is the head of the conservative group Judicial Watch, which claimed that the administration would use emergency powers and military assets assets to carry out mass deportations. It was 4 o'clock in the morning when Trump reposted the claim with a simple yet emphatic confirmation in all capital letters. True. That is true, Trump said. His plan leverages the broad authority granted to presidents to declare national emergencies, which unlocks powers such as reallocating funds initially designed for other purposes. His agenda is going to include using the military not just for these mass deportations, but he has said using the military on citizens. And Texas officials say that they are volunteering the state resources to facilitate these deportations. Texas Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham is offering 1,400 acres of land near the southern border as a mass deportation facility. And they are, and here's the thing, folks, and you guys who get swept up in this stuff and this immigrant stuff. Oh, they're taking our jobs. He told you simply that they were taking black jobs. And if that wasn't offensive enough, they're taking, give me one instance. I was talking to someone not long ago, black guy in New York. He said, well, they are taking our jobs. So give me an example. And homeboy went silent for a minute. Well, no, I mean, I know they are. What jobs? What jobs are they taking? They are getting the government benefits. A, that's not true. Because again, and they are trying to fly under the radar if they're not here legally. They're not going to sign up for government benefits, put all the information out there. That's number one. And B, um, the idea that they are getting government benefits. B, how is that affecting you? Especially this individual I was talking to, who is a musician and works, has a career, a great career in construction. How does that affect you? And after a while, he had to understand. He had to come to the conclusion it doesn't affect me. So why are you upset that they are here? Why are you upset that they're here? And let's be real, as Greer pointed out, undocumented immigrants, they don't take from the tax base, they give to the tax base. They pay state and local taxes. It have nothing to do with your tax bill being high. I was talking to New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy back when we was at the Democratic National Convention. And I was saying to him, Jersey taxes, you chased me out of New Jersey. It's just so high. I mean, our taxes were just as much as our principal and interest on our mortgage. So we just sold. And one of the things we talked about was the program that he has. And again, folks, um, I try to not be a political advocate for anybody or anything political, but in this time, you need to, if you're not in a blue state, you need to really consider it. Because Governor Murphy, what he does do, he installed this program in which homeowners and renters, homeowners receive rebates every year, cash rebates. Because I've gotten 3 or 4 of them of up to $1,500 twice a year. And renters get something like $500 to $750 twice a year. And what really, the property taxes, the biggest part of property taxes, folks, is the schools. And look at your property tax bill. If you haven't, I'm sure those who pay property taxes, that the no matter where you go, the big part of that bill is the schools. It's the anchor program, Cheryl Brown. Yes, indeed. Um, the Jersey anchor program that Governor Murphy installed. Um, but the schools and school district. So when you get a Department of Education secretary come in and say they want to close down or whatever, the education is failing. Let's start there. And there are folks. No one has ever been able to really explain this, but there are folks who don't have kids in school and they own property. They got to pay this huge school part of the property tax bill. Right. Mike V says, how come he wasn't worried about Brett Favre welfare case taken from poor folks and the government in Mississippi? He's the real crook out there. But yeah, see, that's the thing. And the RNG, Mike V is saying if Trump were to send National Guard troops into blue states and blue states enact their own troops to defend the state, what will be the end result of this face-off? It's a good question because you have blue states vowing to defend their citizens. Folks, I'm telling you, a while ago, long before the election, at least a year before the election, if not sooner. Greer said, we're at war and it's going to get worse. And folks, that's what you're seeing. And so Power 96, or RNG's answer, is that the governor of the blue state will turn the National Guard around, but Trump will use active duty service members. The governor of the blue state is out of luck if active duty troops are used. So you're talking about an all-out civil war. And do you think that this power-thirsty administration that's coming in is going to care about a civil war? That's what they've been wanting. That's what those went up in the mountains and got those rednecks and people like this dude that's been posted on here with his Trump supporting ways. That's what they've been thirsting for, right? They've been thirsting for it because their hate of people of color is so intense they can't see past it. They want to either eliminate or enslave them. And so they feel like they can't touch us, but we can dominate them. And the one thing we do know, folks, is 2024. There's too many black folks that's just not going to stand down. For the first time in history, Alabama will have 2 black U.S. House members serving together. Shamari Figures, elected on Tuesday to represent the 2nd Congressional District, will join U.S. Rep. Terry Sewell, who has represented the 7th Congressional District since 2011 and recently won her 8th term. Figures acknowledged the historical significance of his election. He says the opportunity for fair representation is essential to democracy, allowing people from different backgrounds to have their voices heard and interests represented. Sewell's celebrated her milestone by saying that for too long, black voters have had their power diluted by unfair maps. Sending Shamari Figures to Washington gives these voters the chance to claim their seat at the decision-making table. She says, I look forward to partnering with him in Congress to fight for all of Alabama. We know Alabama's population is about 64% white and 27% black, but black residents of Alabama have long faced voter suppression, among other oppressed ways that white supremacy has brought. So Figures and Sewell will now represent districts that include areas once served by historical leaders like Benjamin Turner, James Rapier, and Jeremiah Harrelson. Good for Alabama. There is the progress in Alabama. Isn't that something? Well, interesting. Young Thug is out of jail, as we know, but he isn't out of the woods. He's facing a multi-million-dollar legal battle with concert promoter AEG over an alleged breach of a touring agreement. Now, wait a minute now. He was in jail. How could he tour? AEG, which first filed its lawsuit in 2020, claims that Thug owes more than $5 million and may have to hand over some of his music copyrights to settle the debt. And this is what it's all about. It's about the catalog. The lawsuit stems from a 2017 agreement in which AEG says it paid Thug a $5.3 million advance for exclusive rights to promote his concerts. According to AEG, Young Thug breached the deal almost immediately by performing shows without involving the company and keeping the proceeds. You can't do that. The company alleges the advance was secured by copyrights to Young Thug's music, giving AEG the right to claim those copyrights as collateral. The case was delayed for more than 2 years, of course, while Young Thug, whose real name is Jeffrey Williams, faced criminal charges in a high-profile racketeering case. After spending over 2 years in jail, he pleaded guilty last month and was sentenced to probation. and that helped him avoid a potential life sentence. Now, with the criminal case resolved, AEG has moved forward with its civil lawsuit against Young Thug. They accuse him of attempting to conceal his assets that are tied to his music. In a recent court filing, the company alleged that he sold over 400 copyrighted songs for $16 million in 2021, despite the lawsuit being underway at the time. AG claims the sale may have been fraudulent and is investigating who now owns those copyrights. Subpoenas have been sent to 15 entities as AEG seeks clarity on the transaction. The company says it will decide whether to pursue additional claims against Young Thug or other parties based on the documents it receives. Well, for now, though, AEG's lawyers say they are focused on recovering what they argue is their rightful share of Young Thug's music revenues. So he gets out of jail, but it's back to court. At least it's just a civil, not criminal, right? Wow. They get you one way or the other. One way or the other. Just imagine had he been convicted or well, I mean, he pled guilty and did a deal, but imagine had been sent to prison. AG would have had a run of his music, his money and everything else. So now they got to fight for some of it anyway, unless they reach a deal with him. And I'd imagine as bad as they want that catalog, apparently he's been selling it off, and and because they hadn't entered into any settlement agreements or anything of that nature or court proceedings, that trying to get those pieces of catalog back is going to be probably just not going to happen. So I imagine that they will settle by having him do shows for them. David Youngblood says, I want to know who wouldn't do everything possible to make a life for himself and family when you're starving. The government is corrupt or violence is engulfing your life. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I get it. 100%. Folks, it is, again, not the intent to continue to go down the Trump rabbit hole. We are just presenting what's really happening, the misinformation, the disinformation that folks want to continue to rely on, the cult like Jim Jones like stuff that they want to continue to drink that Kool-Aid. That's on them. We have to figure out measures in which we can move forward and exist in a world dominated, in a US dominated by a bunch of white supremacists. And if you want to lean upon the fact that Joe Biden somehow was a criminal, um, as far as I know, he was never charged with anything, never convicted, never arrested, never interviewed by detectives. But what I will say is what we said at the top, what I said at the top. Joe Biden probably showed his true colors of late. And did he really want, like others that enjoy his type of privilege, did he really want a black woman to be president? I certainly have my doubts. Certainly have my doubts. And all those who worked at the DNC and on the campaign um, certainly have my doubts of their motivations as well to raise the type of money that they raised and to spend. There was $11 billion in campaign money spent over the past couple of years. And so what really motivated these folks? Pocketing the money? I don't know. What motivated them? It doesn't seem like they were truly motivated to act in the best interests of everyone, Black folks, Latino folks, white folks. It doesn't seem to matter. But that is politics too, right? Politicians will act in the best interest of that particular politician before that politician acts in the best interest of his constituents. There's no question. There's absolutely no question about it. Mike V says Biden went from Sleepy Joe to Welcome Back Carter when meeting Trump last week. Absolutely. I mean, the way he dapped up Trump, it was like they were homies. They were homies. It was nauseating to see. Folks will say, his supporters will say, uh, what do you expect? He was just being cordial. There's not, it's, nobody want to see that. Do that behind closed doors. Why you got to do it in front of the cameras if you're going to do it? People want to see what you are doing. He left the country. Biden did. The first president in the rainforest or whatever. So what? He's about to die soon anyway. He's gonna be dead in a few years. Nobody wants to see that. And it's absolutely alarming. Absolutely alarming. And you see at the top of the broadcast this morning, Jasmine Crockett in a fiery rebuke of the other side. You see what they're dealing with. And this guy, what's up, Trump? We still boys. It's like Scarborough and Mika. They went over there to make sure that they kissed the ring and preserve their privilege. This is all this stuff is that. See, and they tried so hard. And Scarborough try to blame Black folks and Latino folks for Kamala's loss. We see, you see where he's coming from. There are no allies. And to see that even with this Charles Martin character, there's no allies. No allies. And the shame of it all is that even those, as we said earlier, those like this dude, they about to find out too. They think they're good. They got their supremacist in chief at the top, and the other supremacist minions there, and they think they're good. They're about to find out too that they don't care about you. Your life is going to be turned upside down as well. You're going to be miserable because you were responsible for it. You're going to be more miserable because you were responsible for it. And I agree with you, Mike V. He says the term BIPOC should be deleted from the social justice lexicon going forward. There are no allies. You're in that foxhole alone. You're against, the back is totally squarely against the wall. And so it's on you. It's on you. And that is the way it is. That is letting it be known. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Through perversion of his words and his mission, when his children have asked you to stop invoking his name and perverting his work when he was a proud and unapologetic Black man fighting for equality for Black Americans and all marginalized people. So you all are entitled to your opinions, but not a denial of the facts. But I'm not surprised that you would deny American history. What I am, though, is committed. Committed to speaking truth to power, committed to standing up for marginalized communities and vulnerable people, committed to ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity to buy a house, to work a job, to pursue higher education, and to live in a society that is fair and just. A colleague across the aisle invoked the phrase of, we must do everything to stop government-sponsored oppression. Well, I've just enumerated numerous examples, which is exactly why we have legislation and an executive order to reverse this harm. And that is why I'm committed to opposing this bill and urge my colleagues to do the same.